Supergirl episode 6, Red Faced. Now, I really love this episode. I think it was a great development episode for Kara. I think she had a lot of really cool moments. And then the fact that they had Red Tornado in this kind of blew my mind because I had no idea this was happening. And, going into it, I was like, like I said in my last review, I was thinking, I really want them to get into Astra because we haven't seen her. It's episode 6. And we haven't seen her since that big fight she had. And it's been like, all the villains have been other villains, like no one's come from the ship or anything, like, oh, this is another one of Astra's generals or anything like that. It's just been random enemies. It's almost like they completely forgot about them as like the first 3 episodes happened. It was like, meh, they're done with that, it doesn't matter. So I wanted them to really get back into that. I wanted the other half of the story to be them investigating Hank, and that's what I was looking forward to in this episode. But even though we didn't get that, I loved what we got. It was a really great episode. When they first showed Red Tornado, I was like, oh, Red Tornado, because I freaked out. I had no idea he was in it. So that blew my mind because I didn't think they were going to take such a big step because we had, technically we had Superman, but that was like nothing really. So this was a huge deal that they actually had Red Tornado in the episode. And it was very different than the comic book version, and they didn't. The fact that they destroyed him at the end is what surprised me the most because I thought what was going to happen was that he would be controlled. Like, once they kind of revealed that at the end, I thought that, maybe Alex killed the guy and they mentioned that Red Tornado had become sentient. I thought that he would survive and then kind of turn into a hero from that point because Red Tornado is basically an AI program, and I don't really know his origins and all that stuff, but pretty much he can do what he wants. Like, he's sentient and he chose to be, basically a hero. So I thought it was interesting that they destroyed him. I don't know if they're gonna bring Red Tornado back somehow. I don't see how they really could because of the fact that, Kara had like a super epic ending, with the lasers, but I'll get to that. But I was surprised that they destroyed him because of who Red Tornado is. I still enjoyed the fact that he was in the episode. I liked the fact that during like the training program, the first thing they had Red Tornado do was spin the hands and make the tornado. So I was like, all right, they right off the top they did that. The design of Red Tornado was a little weird. I thought it couldn't. I feel like it actually would have looked better if they made it more like the comic book version because it felt too human based to me. And I know that's kind of how Red Tornado is, but Red Tornado's design is kind of like bulky, almost kind of like Superman, and he's almost got like sort of a buff kind of build. So I felt this was a little bit too thin of a thing. It just really looked, it looked too much like a guy in a costume to me, and it didn't feel enough like this is like a bulky, big kind of robot that they made. It felt too much like a person in a suit, and that was like my main issue with the design and everything. I like kind of the yellow eyes, which I thought was interesting. For some reason, whoever was the actor, their face totally made me think of Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation. For some reason, it may have been the yellow eyes because I think Data had yellow eyes as well. But I was like, man, his facial features make me think of Data from Star Trek. So I thought that was kind of funny, and it definitely wasn't him because he's much older now. But it was still pretty cool. Like, I kind of like this suit a little bit, but at the same time, it was like it just looks too much like a guy in a suit rather than just a big robot, which I feel like they still could have done. I did like the giant T on the front. That was pretty cool, and I like that it wasn't like super bright red because he is sort of it is kind of like a burgundy crimson color, like just dark red, to put it simply. So I did like that they kind of matched the color. They didn't make it super bright or anything, and they had like just enough. They like the tiniest accent of the yellow in there, which I thought was pretty cool. And that was basically just the outline for the T. So I did like how it looked, but like I said, I would have preferred if it was kind of a bulkier sort of, if it looked more robot than it did guy in a robot suit. But I still thought it looked pretty cool. I definitely liked the action that they did for it and how, well, initially it was that he kind of grew as an AI, which I thought, like I said, they were kind of leading up to, especially during that second fight. And then it got revealed that Red Tornado was still being controlled by, as Lord put it, like Frankenstein himself. So it was a little disappointing that they kind of destroyed him. I like that the way they shot that fight. I think that was the first time they did it that way, where they kind of blend like one motion into the next motion, from the other fight. So if like Alex was punched, then it would cut to Kara like turning her head after she'd been punched. And I always kind of like those in TV shows. I like how they do those types of fights, and it really blends them into one battle. I always like visually. I just like how that always turns out. So I think it was really cool how they did that. And once again, Alex, holding her own, just being a cool fighter. It did suck that she had to kill the guy, and you could see it on her face. I'm wondering how that might affect her character, because she didn't want to kill him. She just wanted to stop him, but the gun kind of went off because she, had to deal with this guy who's coming at her like crazy, who, for some reason, he knew how to fight really well, too. So I don't know what the deal was with that. But he knew how to take on her, and she's like, who knows what martial arts training she has, or just a CQC type training, but he's just like holding his own like it was nothing. So, the gun goes off and she has to kill the guy by accident, and it would go slow motion. You can just see the shock on her face. That is not what she wanted to do. So I'm wondering how it's really going to affect her character in these next couple episodes. Like I said, it sucks that they destroyed Red Tornado, because I thought for sure that it was going to be, Red Tornado would take in all the consciousness of the creator, and it would be like the life of that creator would go into Red Tornado all in an instant, and then Red Tornado would instantly stop things and be like, hey, now that I'm sentient, I know what's right and what's wrong. But that doesn't happen, and they, destroy Red Tornado. But they do it in like the coolest way possible, because this entire episode was Kara going through a lot of struggles. It was her, new life, the stuff. It did kind of start up with obviously Jimmy and Lucy, and just how much she didn't really like Lucy, and then it got worse with the Supergirl confrontation. So, there's a lot of built up rage there, and she had actually a really cool moment with Kat, and we finally get to meet her mother, and yeah, I didn't really like her either, to be totally honest, but that was kind of the point of her character. So she had a pretty interesting moment with Kat when she actually yelled at her, but Kat kind of saw through and was like, "You're not really mad at me," although obviously there was a part of it where she totally was, but it's like there's something else there, and I liked how they did that for Kara. I like how they worked through that. They show a lot of the issues that she doesn't really tend to talk about, and I think it worked out really well. They also had a really funny scene when Kara and Jimmy were like kind of getting through their anger, and she's like, "Well, I forgot what she said. It was like, I'm a girl. Like we're taught to smile and keep it on the inside." And then Jimmy was like, "Well, black men aren't exactly, you know, encouraged to be angry in public." So I love that. Just line of dialogue was hilarious to me. I was like, that's just really funny that they put that in there. But that was a really good scene, because it started off simple. It was like, you say something, you do a little punch, and then with Kara, it just built up like crazy. Like Jimmy was like, "I don't like my girlfriend's dad, and he doesn't like me." It's fairly simple compared to everything Kara had, and that she was able to finally let that out at the end of this episode, and it was amazing. And I wondered, as soon as it happened, at the very end when she cut her finger, I was like, she used up her power, because I've seen that before. I can't remember. I think it was like the Supergirl movie, where Supergirl like first came to town. It's one of the animated DC films, and that was one of the things that happened. They fought like a bunch of robot versions of Doomsday, and Superman did like a giant sweeping like laser beam across like this giant field, and it like really messed him up until he was super tired from doing that. And when she was using her powers, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna do the same thing, because I didn't know if that was just maybe from that movie, or if that was just universal, where that always happens if Superman or Supergirl use like their laser vision. That seems to be the one thing that really does it, and I guess it's oddly because obviously the sun being so hot, and that's like direct transfer of energy. So when she was doing it first, it was super cool, because it was just like, all right, I still love the visuals, because I love the fact that it's like blue and white instead of just the red. So as soon as she did, I was like, well, it always looks cooler than when Superman does it. And then it just got more and more intense, and then she did like that final scream, and it was almost like it was burning her eyes. Like you could see basically like her veins were like kind of getting like almost like lava. They were like turning red and stuff. And I was like, this is just really cool because it's something we hadn't seen before, and this is her exerting all of this rage that she has into taking down an enemy, and it was like the perfect thing too because she had so much more rage to get out, but Red Tornado could continue to like walk towards her because he could take so much force. And it was just really cool. It was a really great scene. And then, of course, she gets cut at the end. As soon as it happened, it was like she doesn't have her powers anymore. I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, but based on the trailer, it seems like she's not going to have her powers for quite some time. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe a couple days or something. But she still, she still has to be Supergirl, which I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out because she's going to have to run everywhere. She can't fly. So I'm curious to see what's gonna happen with her like running to from place to place if she's trying to still stop crimes. I'm sure she won't get shot, and if she does, it'll be in the arm or something, and it'll freak people out, and then she'll come back at the end like, oh, that was just a fluke or something, maybe. But I'm really looking forward to that because I think it should be interesting. That's I've mentioned this before. I think it was in like the third or fourth episode. I mentioned that I love what they do with the show as far as character development, and this was a prime example. This episode was an amazing example of that. And I can't wait to see how in the world they play around with this idea of, Supergirl gone. So I'm looking forward to that. I think this was a really fun episode. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I actually want to know what you guys thought about Red Tornado being in this episode. Because it may have initially been in the promo for this episode to show like, hey, Red Tornado's going to be in it, but because we had the switched episodes, they didn't do that. So it really caught me off guard. I'm sure you could have found it online if you really looked ahead of time, but I want to know what you guys thought about Red Tornado being put in this. If you know him, or even if you don't, just what you thought of Red Tornado, the design, the way they worked the character out as far as being a villain and stuff. It was cool to see him make an actual tornado too, because that would have been, I don't think it would have been something that was missing. Because I don't normally when he uses his powers, he makes the tornado just because he's flying, not because it's like here's a tornado to really throw it at people. Not from what I've seen at least. Excuse me. So I think it was a cool extra that they had it where he actually made a tornado, but I don't think I needed to see that for me to enjoy him using his powers, because he certainly did enough. I would like to have seen it a little bit more, where he actually made the tornadoes with his hands, but did it quite a few times, especially when he like hit Lucy and they did like the CG and she like flew back. I was like, man, even in CG that just looked really, really painful. Like she was just flying backwards. I was like, crap, she looks like she got really messed up, but fortunately, everything came out fine for her. But I really was surprised that it was Red Tornado. Like I said, my only real disappointment, like the biggest thing, is that they destroyed him. But maybe it's because it's so early, it would be a little difficult to be like, hey, here's Red Tornado, and then, I think they could have done it because it's TV. There's always something where it's like, oh, this really important character in like this universe is now here, but then they go off to basically train forever. It easily could have worked, so it does kind of suck that they officially ended Red Tornado, and there was no extra little scene like, oh, even this little piece survived or anything like that. So I don't think that'll be the case. It easily could be, because we do still have Maxwell Lord, who's in the episode, and he's still kind of antagonistic towards Supergirl. So maybe he'll show up there. Maybe they'll know what happened. He'll find some random tiny itty bitty little chip, and it'll be like, boom, starting, Red Tornado, 2.0 or something. But I want to know what you guys thought about Red Tornado in this episode, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.